Welcome to Zen Live. I believe it's Thursday, another beautiful day in Blackstone. And I couldn't wait to, we stopped off at my son's house in Chesterfield last night. And I couldn't wait to, well, I could wait, but I wanted to get back here and talk to you about what was so amusing to me, because my son and his wife have said they're vegan now. And so they're all excited about, and so they're on this great discovery to find vegan food. And I just wanted to share with you how ironic this seems to me, because when I first got the yoga bud in 1970, and I wanted to practice yoga with the Light of Yoga Society, one of the categorical imperatives to be a yogi was to not eat meat, and so my entrance to this membership, this yoga church, was my teacher said, "Don't eat meat, don't drink, don't smoke for a year, and come see me," because I was living in another state at the time. So I said, "Oh, is that all?" and just fell off. But this was before, this was not vegetarian. It was just don't eat meat, but you can eat anything else. So it was quite an adventure in 1970 to be a vegetarian. People didn't understand it. People got offended by it, threatened, and it made you feel kind of special. And of course, when my yoga didn't pan out in 3 or 4 years, and I didn't become enlightened, I gave it up and went back to Virginia and ended up driving a meat truck. So I was a vegetarian meat truck driver. And I thought that was rather ironic. But then I succumbed to a Big Mac attack, and then smoking, of course, came back. And then for about a year, I was battling the devil in the meat truck, throwing the cigarettes out the car with one hand, bringing home for the family to eat the expired hot dogs that the market rejected. Well, they looked okay to me. And so I was not only eating Karen, so anyway, but the battle with the devil finally brought me to a point where I said, what in the hell do I really want to do? What do I want to do? I want to go back to my yoga path. Immediately the meat fell off, and I went back to Cleveland to continue my path. So I guess what I'm telling you is that my own vegetarian experience has been like a roller coaster. So I'll briefly state that before I get into some other aspects of this. But so we were vegetarians, back to being vegetarians, and we moved to Southside Virginia, which is not a vegetarian place. I mean, people here are meat eaters. And if you go out to eat, you can't find any, at least you couldn't find any vegetarian meals. And if you went to somebody's house, you disappointed the cook because they had prepared this delicious meat dish, and you said, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't eat it." So, ooh. So anyway, but the world has changed, and vegetarianism and veganism is becoming more acceptable and mainstream. And of course, it's created a whole new industry now. And this is what my son and his wife are running into, is that it's very expensive to eat. Oh, and not only are they vegan, but they're organic vegans. So that's a double whammy. So now they have to find organic vegan foods. And now there's a whole industry coming up with these imitation foods, sausage, fake meat, organic fake meat, and no cheese, so you can't eat cheese if you're vegan, no dairy products, so it's really difficult, and I really admire them for taking on this challenge, because it was ironically, when my son and my daughter were raised with us, we didn't make them become vegetarians. They went out, they could have a hamburger or whatever. We just didn't cook it at home. So they weren't forced. They couldn't eat. They didn't eat meat at home, but when they went out, they could. So they were ambidextrous in the sense that they were had the best of two worlds, I guess, or the worst. But anyway, when did it fall off? Well, after we moved back to Southside Virginia, and I got a job working with the Courier-Record, I think we just said the purpose for the reason for the vegetarianism, which to begin with for me, I was the initiator in this, was to practice yoga and to be part of a guru yoga. If you want to be with this teacher or guru, you have to not eat meat. So when my guru yoga stage began to fade, the reason for eating meat began to fade. So we went back to practicing Southside Virginia in the 90s. Eating big steaks, barbecue, drinking, watching TV, working during the day. That was the basic spiritual practice here. And that lasted until 2005. And I went up to Yogaville and and my soul kicked inside the womb again of the heart. Boom! Oh, I'm alive. I'm back. I'm back. And suddenly I was back on my yoga path, but not with a teacher this time, not with the support of a guru. And guess what? The meat fell off. I hadn't started smoking again, so that didn't fall off. But the meat fell off, so we were back being vegetarian. Meditation came back. Writing came back. I opened up a yoga center. All of it came back. And that went along until 2013. Just a few years ago, I went down to Tampa to rescue my uncle, and his partner had died and he had a stroke. So we brought him up here, and we began to cook for him. The house was kind of like Downton Abbey. We'd roll him into the dining room with his wheelchair, and I'd have a waiter's cloth over my arm, and I would describe the delightful meal we were going to have for him. And of course he ate meat, so we were cooking meat. And then one day we went to a friend's house, and she had prepared this beautiful chicken dinner. I think she might have been from Iran. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a vegetarian." I saw the face. Oh. And I said, "What the hell? Give me the chicken." And from then on, the meat came back. And so I guess for me, it was never I don't want to eat meat because I want. It was not a vow because of nonviolence. I don't want to participate in the killing of animals, and it was not a dietary thing, and it was purely just for me. Just if I want to practice yoga, the yoga practice required not eating meat, and in my own evolution, it just seemed to be okay. And so for me it is. And in fact, it was okay with Buddha. I primarily practice Buddha Dharma. And for the Buddhist, basically, you can eat meat as long as it's not killed, you don't kill it, or it's killed specifically for you. So it kind of like threads the needle. And Buddha himself died from eating some pork given to him by somebody who was hosting him, putting him up for the night, I guess. And so, anyway, that's where I am. So I got to thinking about this again now that my son is launching on this journey. He and his wife, and they're going into a world that I didn't have to go into, which is that industrial veganism, an industrial food system that supplies the new converts, you see. So there are a lot of new converts. In fact, they were converted by watching this movie called Fork Over Knife, I think, or something. And so it's really it's a spiritual awakening in a sense. I wanted to talk about that because if you go back historically, Buddha, the first vegetarians, the first religious movement, it's called asceticism, which is rising above the world to the soul, to awaken the soul by removing yourself from the world. So the world is kind of like clinging to you. It's kind of this karma. So if you want to free yourself from karma, you have to cut away the tethers to the world. Just being a monk or going to a monastery. And not eating meat is a process or a way of being a monk in the world. Being not attached to the flesh, but being in the world at the same time, you see. So this vegetarianism in the modern world is kind of like a modern Jainism. Now the Jains existed during Buddha's time. And they are an extreme, but the logical conclusion of nonviolence. Because the Jain monk, whose effort is to purify his soul, so his soul is crystal clear, free of all leftovers and stain and desire and flesh and all that, you see, crystal clear. They even wear masks so they won't breathe a bug. They sweep the ground so they don't step on a bug. So if they kill any form of life, you see, that's going to inhibit the soul's progress to clarity and freedom, you see. So anyway, that Buddha looked at that and saw all this. Buddha went through the austerities and the asceticism of his day and found it to be lacking in the same way that I will get. But anyway, so that the awakening, this becomes a block to the awakening that the Buddha, the enlightenment or the awakening that the Buddha became. Because you become special. I know as a vegetarian, I was special because I didn't eat meat. And, you're just giving in to desire. And the whole idea in the yoga philosophy was that in yoga, the Prakriti, or the phenomenal world, has three energies in it: Tattvas, Rajas, and Sattva. Tattvic is the decay, the decaying. Rajas is the active, desiring energy, and Sattva is the equanimity and peaceful. So on the spiritual path, you want to be sattvic. So you're going to eat sattvic foods, which is vegetables. If you eat meat, you're eating the rajas and the desire for flesh and the animal world, you see, and the desire for the world. So you want to become above desire and violence and conflict and nature, tooth and nail, you see. So this whole movement is the idea to move above the sphere of violence, life and death, life eating life. Joseph Campbell, in his study of mythology, really came down to say, as I recall, that all of the different mythologies and spiritual movements were a reaction to the fundamental truth that life lives on life. All life lives on death. All life lives on life. And this is a very existential realization, and it's very powerful when you realize that you're going to die. When the doctor calls and says, "I'm sorry, but you got a lump, and you have something terminal here." That's this existential encounter with the fundamental death of life, you see. And also we look around and see the big fish eating the little fish, and the animals eating everything. Everything is eating everything. It's Pac-Man. So there's a revulsion to this. So there's a reaction to it, a recoil. And that recoil creates the movement to rise above it. Well, I'm not going to eat meat. And this is a spiritual awakening. So I'm not discounting this sudden awakening of the vegetarian or vegan impulse, you see, because it's a spiritual impulse, and it's and it's also a vow. And I've been thinking about this a lot. The vow is that in our Western secular world of desire, desire is good. Desire runs the economy. Desire makes things go. If you didn't desire new stuff, the whole place would fall apart. You see, so desire is good. Greed is good. It's the engine. Rajas, eat the world up. Keep eating, and that's why we're getting so obese. Keep eating. You'll be. But when you realize that permanent satisfaction does not come from eating stuff, buying stuff, when you have that realization, you want to disconnect from it. And I think that's the movement, the vegetarian movement is, I want to disconnect from this because it's not going anywhere. It's just creating more obesity. It's just creating more pain. You see, I want to lose weight. So even the desire to lose weight is a spiritual desire. You see, all of this, lose weight, cut back, simplify, organic, homeschool, home improvement, do it yourself. All of these movements are basically the same movement to disconnect from this flesh, eat flesh, hunger of the world devouring itself to no end, you see. So they're all different manifestations of the same impulse to become lighter, to become more clear, to awaken the soul within, to awaken out of the lotus wants to awaken out of the mud, you see. The flower blooms out of the weeds, you see. So this impulse is to basically, the first impulse is to break away. Now this is difficult because, first of all, it requires a vow. So if I'm going to become a vegetarian, or, I always laugh, so you got vegetarians are liberals and vegans are fundamentalists. So if you're going to be a vegetarian or vegan, that's a vow. I vow not to eat meat. Now the whole world is going to come in and try to make you eat meat. Now by the whole world, I mean your mind. So you walk down the street and you smell some chicken. My son was talking about that. Oh, they went to the mall and they smelled this fresh chicken. And you know, so what's going on there? It's not the chicken that's tempting you. It's the mind, you see. It's the attachment to sense pleasures. And, like we all know what the smell of a donut smells like. But then, of course, if you're vegetarian, you can eat the donut. Unless you are vegan, then you watch out, well, it's got milk in it. So, but the point is that this is a movement that detaches you. There is a vow to be detached from the power of the senses, which basically is the habit mind. Our culture, you see, induces a sense attachments. Advertising, the whole advertising network is based on connecting your sense attachment to some product. You see something, oh, look at all those happy people eating that donut. I want that donut because then I'll be happy like those people. But when you eat the donut, you're not happy like those people. You're thinking about something else. You don't even eat the donut. We get the donut. What we get is the end of the desire for the donut. Oh, I no longer desire the donut. How painful that desire is, you see. So anyway, the first stage of your vegan vow is going to be you're going to encounter the temptations of sense pleasures, which is exactly where the Buddha was when he sat down under the Bodhi tree. He was attacked by Mara, or his own mind. Fear, attachment, desire, and then doubt. The three sisters, or whatever. So, When you become a vegan, when you take the vow, this monastic vow, to become a sannyasi, an ascetic, a spiritual traveler, when you a non-violence, the path of non-violence, you see. You encounter the violence of your own mind. You encounter the violence of, I want that meat, but now I took a vow, I can't do it. And so now the mind will try to unseat you and make you say, oh, forget about it. Give me the chicken. So we have these, I wish my son and his daughter and his wife well, and I just find it, you know, and I really regret that my poor mother loved to cook for us. She lived to be 102, and she always loved, her biggest moment was putting out and so we were vegetarians, and she said, well, what can I fix you? Because she couldn't think, if you took the meat off the plate, that you took the center out of it, and the rest was just some vegetables around it, you know, and we'll just take the meat off and we'll eat it. Oh, but it just didn't know. The meat was the center. And of course, when you're a vegetarian, you realize how meat is the center of our diet, you see. Everything, you go to a restaurant, now what do you want? You got steak, you want lamb, you want fish, you got some meat. You don't say, oh, I want mashed potatoes, that's the center. Just give me a big plate of mashed potatoes. No, you pay for the meat. The vegetables are the side orders. You get 2 or 3 of those. So it changes your way of thinking, changes your way of eating, changing your way of being in the world. So it's a great adventure. And you have to become conscious of all of these food industrial forces that flow through our society unconsciously, that we just go following our scent pleasure. You know, oh, there's a donut. Oh, there's a pork chop. You say, oh, there's this. You say, you just go just like a feather on the wind of sense pleasures, you see, blowing to this one and that, you know, always wondering why you're still hungry for something greater, something that is not full of pain, you see. So anyway, I wish all the vegans and vegetarians in the world good luck, and I'll see you at martini time.